Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Circle City Conversations. Thank you for joining me for our conversation today. Thank you to our sponsor, Limontes, an Indiana law firm representing injured Hoosiers and their families for over 50 years. And I'd like to thank everyone for their continued support. I am here today with two of my dear friends that I've known for a long time from the Rule of Law Committee, on behalf of the Rule of Law Committee with Indianapolis Bar Association, Chris Hickey and Travis Jensen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us, Alex.
We are here to talk about a newly formed committee through the Indianapolis Bar Association. And tell me a little bit about the why now. Why did IndyBar form this new committee now? And what was the moment that made the IndyBar realize that they couldn't wait any longer? This was the best time.
Well, I'll answer the first question. Why now? Yeah. I guess my answer to that is, if not now, then when? And I can't speak to the IndyBar's decision other than I got a phone call from the President Lee Christie saying that this is important and, are you willing to co-chair with Travis? And my response was absolutely, if we're going to educate and inform. And for me personally, of course, I believe in the rule of law, but I think we've all seen the news. We've seen the headlines. We've, I think, felt that diminishing respect for the rule of law. So what better time? You got to start somewhere, right?
Right.
And of course, I'll adopt everything that she said. I don't think, she just told you that she wasn't involved in whatever the decision-making process was to start it. And it was started as an initiative. So it was a little while after we got going as an initiative before it was turned into a permanent committee. But it was the same situation for me. Lee asked if I would be willing to co-chair with Chris, and I was thrilled because I've not had a chance before this to work with Chris, although I've heard about her for a very long time. And my understanding really was that the more that this term, the rule of law, which I bet we'll get into defining later on in this, but the more that it was heard in the news and the more that people were talking about it, the question really was, why haven't we always been talking about this and having it a part of what we do as the Bar Association for Lawyers? So not being a part of those initial meetings, but understanding that that's really where it came from, was a recognition that this should be a part of what we do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I think we kind of reached a tipping point, right? And the public trust in our legal systems has just seemed to erode away. And we have to be able to rebuild that, and to show them that, these systems are there for a reason. So as far as when you look at the current state of our democracy, what are some of the things that keep you up at night?
Boy, people who don't respect the law, people who aren't being held accountable. And we know that, rule of law is you're accountable to each other. You're accountable to follow the law. If you don't like the law, you follow the law. You can challenge the law, and there are right ways to do it. Watching, reading, hearing people who may not understand the rule of law, or just don't care about the fact that we have laws. We have laws for a reason, and there are the right ways to deal with the fact that you may disagree. So generally, it keeps me up at night that we don't have a society as a whole that believes in the rule of law or has a respect that they should for the rule of law.
I would say that one of the things that, and this is not going to be unique to me, but obviously I'm raising two daughters.
Yeah.
And as is the experience for all of us, they ask a lot of questions, a lot of great questions. And the conversations that we have when I'm trying my best to answer those reminds me that a lot of the things that we take for granted on a daily basis are because we have a set of laws and that we all agree as citizens to abide by the rule of law.
That's really what I worry about when I think about people supporting lawlessness, I worry about the future of my kids. So,
and both of my children are lawyers.
Yeah.
And so we have this discussion, we all believe firmly that, everybody should understand the rule of law the way that you do as a lawyer. Like, we have laws, we've got rules, they need to be followed. You can challenge them in the right way. Mine are past, but growing up stage.
Still growing. You remember what it was like as a young lawyer. You did a lot of growing back then.
I do. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk about the rule of law. We've been using that term quite a bit. What is the rule of law really? Can you explain it to someone, a layperson that has no idea what you're talking about?
Well, nobody's above the rule of law. Everyone's to be treated fairly and equally under the law. Nobody's different. Everybody's to be held accountable. I think that's the most basic way of putting it. And if I were to have to say to like somebody's young child, I'll say by way of explanation, like when your car stops at a red light or you go through a green light, you expect people are following the rules and they'll be held accountable. If someone steals your property, you expect that they'll be held accountable because we've got rules as a society. It's one of the things that, supports the fundamental principles of the Constitution that gives us our liberty, all the rights that we've got. And I think that's it more so for me.
That is it in a nutshell. I can't say too much more about it other than to say she mentioned that people have a reasonable expectation about what will happen and how the laws will be applied, and that they're applied equally regardless of wealth.
Yeah.
We could run down the demographics of any other category, regardless of power, real or perceived, all of the things that we all agree as a society that this is how we will handle something. As she said, we know what a green light means. We agreed that if we're going to operate our vehicles on a road, that means we have the right of way. And if there's a red light, that means we have to stop because somebody else has the right of way. Yeah. So just those very fundamental rules and the expectations that they will be applied fairly.
Let me ask you something. What would you say to the person that thinks that the rule of law doesn't apply to rich people, for example, because they're so wealthy that if they get pulled over for a DUI, they'll just go hire the best criminal defense attorney and maybe get the whole thing dismissed? What do you say to people like that? That's what they see, that's how they perceive it?
I can take a stab first if you want. What I would say is that we still have a system that is worked by human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that the system is perfect. It's not to say that there aren't. This is actually one good way to say it is what the framers came up with the U.S. Constitution is very difficult stuff.
Yeah.
It is not easy. And what is easy is to find ways that we wish it worked better.
Yes.
But on your specific example, what I'd say is there are some parts of truth to if somebody has resources individually that they may be able to hire a very good lawyer.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody may not have that same access. However, the system is set up so there are things to check that on the other side. And of course, even if they hire a good lawyer, if indeed it's not something that is pled out, mm-hmm. It's going to be decided by a jury.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, one of the bedrocks of checks and balances. So what I would say is I can understand why somebody would have that impression.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it would be wrong to dismiss there's absolutely no basis for that impression. But then I would talk through, here are all the checks and balances that are in place for the exact reason of making sure that somebody with wealth does not get an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
And the only thing I agree 100%. That was a great answer. We see examples where things don't turn out the way they should or the way that you expect every day in life, right?
Yeah.
But overall, you have to have a set of laws and rules. You have to have people being held accountable for when they don't follow the law. That doesn't mean that every ruling is going to be what you like. It doesn't mean that you don't see instances where it didn't seem fair.
Yeah.
But overall, by and large, we've got the American rule of law versus, other countries, other ways that they deal with their issues, the way that their people interact, taking property, rights, liberties. I'd say we have one of the best systems.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to find examples where we could do better.
Mm-hmm.
But we're growing, right?
And just to go off on what you're saying, is that one of the best ways sometimes to think about it is what are the alternatives? We all know that before systems of laws and governments are set up, it was other things that controlled how people got what they want.
Seemed a little more violent.
Well, it was. It was. And of course, that's often one of the concerns, that things can go that way. But it was like who was stronger.
Right.
Without digressing too much, I sometimes think about the book, Lord of the Flies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because, if you thought about, let's just think for a second, what if everybody in this room, were put on a desert island and we had to figure out how are we going to handle the resources? Without this system, then it would be us just kind of figuring out if one of us had a bad day, or really wanted something, how would we handle that? So,
yeah, I can. So, you were talking about the government coming in or someone coming in and taking things. An example on my family's side was my family came to this country from Cuba. My parents did. And the government took their house, same house that they had bought years before that, before the communist government took over the country, and then took their house, said it was state property, and then forced my family to repurchase the house again. It was a scam. It was. Yes, that's a real life example of what happens in a society where the rule of law is not respected and followed. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So, well, does the average person on the street do they really care about the rule of law, or is this something that really only lawyers, people like us, care about?
I don't know the answer to does the average person really care about it, but you should.
Yeah.
Every person should, for all the reasons that we're talking about. Whether it is, like, for example, your civic responsibility to serve on the jury, right? Jury duty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the number of people that don't show up, when they're the ones sitting there in the chair and wanting a jury of their peers, and people aren't showing up and you can't get a jury of their peers, they would really appreciate, the fact that people abided by the obligation to serve jury duty, right, in our Bill of Rights, right, jury trial. So, yeah, there's so many things every day. And, that is part of our focus, is to help educate the public on why.
Yeah.
Every single day when you eat food, you rely on the fact that whoever made that food in the restaurant is complying with all the rules that they have to follow, that you're safe and what you're eating is safe. There are so many things in every person's life every single day that you take for granted, that, if someone does you wrong, that they can be held accountable, should be held accountable, right? And you have a system, you have a way to go about doing that. So, they should.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people do. I do know, though, that there are a lot of people who hear the rule of law, lawyers included, who say, what does it really mean? Right? And now people are talking about it and saying, yeah, well, let's break that down. We say it, but what does it mean? And it's very basic and very fundamental, and is ever present in everybody's lives every day.
Always sitting here thinking, I can't say anything any better than that, but trying to add something to it is that, as she said, they should, and yes, they should. And then I'd say maybe even they do, they just don't know that's what it's called.
Right.
Because they do care
right.
about consistency and having an expectation, or else how do they get up and go about their day? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like a lot of a lack of understanding, maybe some misinformation that's being fed about to them about the specific term itself and what it means, but a lack of understanding that it is woven into the fabric of our everyday lives.
Well, it's interesting you use the word fabric, because we're seeing some of it unravel because of examples.
Yeah.
That are being set every day when, people are doing things that are lawless and a blind eye is being turned right. And so they're like, well, do you only have to abide by this rule or maybe just not those over there? So I think that the more that we can even hear it with the IndyBar and in the state of Indiana, start to have those conversations so that people understand you may see things that aren't right, but there's a lot that's right about it, and we want to talk to you about it and educate your students and your children and just the general public, so that everybody recognizes how important it is, even when you see things that might set an example otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you see people losing faith in our legal institutions, what does that do to you personally? How does that make you feel?
Awful.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing people who don't respect decisions of the court, seeing people, losing confidence in our judicial system, it's awful. And again, I think that there's improvement to be made, and I think that the focus on this, both by the committee, but I think you're seeing the legal community come out. We are at least seeing the legal community come out. People who practiced for longer than we have, who are saying, "Yeah, I want to volunteer for this. I want to be a part of this," so that they can go out and talk to other people, and people are getting re-inspired about not only hearing about it and rereading things that you maybe haven't dusted off in a while that talk about constitutional rights and things like that. I think it's definitely going to get better, but I think seeing it is terrible.
Yeah,
I agree with awful.
Yeah.
I'd add up concerned.
Yes.
And I know that Chris will agree with me too, as will everybody that's responded to us. I feel called to do something, is how I feel. And I mean, that includes going back and thinking about some things that I've not thought about in the same way for a long time. Reading some foundational things that I read early in my education, and then being a part of something like this, to feel like there's something tangible that we're doing to, and one of the biggest parts of this for me is getting to be in the room for these conversations.
Yeah.
And getting to be involved in brainstorming of what can we, under this umbrella of rule of law, what are all of the various things that we can come up with that would be helpful to educate, to remind ourselves, and to increase the confidence in the rule of law and our system to as many people as possible.
Yeah. What are some maybe specific examples, some illustrations where you've seen that breakdown on the rule of law?
You want to take that?
I think that there have been examples of that would be anytime someone believes, your example earlier, that somebody who is wealthy is not held to the same standard or get an unfair advantage. That's a breakdown in the rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime somebody believes that they can use any kind of influence, and by the way, I mean, I'm not trying to be, we all know people, we all have relationships. I know you and had a relationship with you. That's why we got to be here today. But there are some that are natural interactions with other human beings. And then there are a different kind that involve trying to have an unfair advantage where somebody's getting hurt or somebody is getting disadvantaged in that process. Yeah. And I think that anytime somebody thinks that the system is not what it claims to be is a breakdown of the rule of law. Yeah. And those are limitless examples.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, one of the things that is at play, I mean, the rule of law is inherently tied to different desires of everybody that's a part of our community. And so there are, using the word with a small p, politics involved. And that is a part of our system too. There should be differences of opinion, and there should be different desires and different things that people want. But when that distracts, which can happen at every level, when that distracts from the core understanding that we have to have this system in order for us to be able to speak up for things that we want and come to resolutions peacefully, that when there's too much focus on differences rather than what the system means for us as a basis, that's a breakdown in the rule of law.
Well, and let me tell you one time, or an example of when I think it works and when it makes me proud. When somebody gets a decision that they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
To say, I don't like the decision, but I am following that decision. Or when someone speaks out and says, you know what, this is wrong, I'm going to ignore it. And the response should be, if it's wrong, make change.
Yes.
Advocate for change to the law. Go to your legislator. Do it the right way. You can verbalize the fact that you don't agree, but the way that you handle it makes a difference. So when you see people who do it the right way, that gives me great confidence in the fact that many people understand you may not like it, but there are ways to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Proper ways. Right.
Yeah. It actually reminds me, we're talking about examples of a recent thing where we have a case, a civil rights case against the police, and I did a WTHR story on it. And the next morning I received an email from someone that was pretty racist and pretty threatening. And the email itself said, why don't you stop chasing ambulances and worry more about not getting deported back to Cuba where you belong? I hope no one calls ICE on you. Yeah. Which is funny because my family's Cuban. It's not funny, but it's funny because I'm a U.S. citizen. But that, I would consider that a complete breakdown of the system because, I'm, through my client, telling their story about what happened to them and, alleging these civil rights allegations, and then as the attorney, then getting those kind of threats from probably from a keyboard warrior. It's like you said, I am a big guy, so good luck, buddy. But so yeah, but I would consider that the same kind of thing. Or Emmanuel and I were talking about today we were talking about doing a festival we always do, Fiesta Indianapolis, but they're not doing it this year because they're scared. Because they're scared of putting a large group of Hispanics and Latinos together for awesome music and great food and great times. And they're worried about, some kind of a raid or something like that. This is a festival that's been going on for years, just another example of the kind of the breakdown, of the system. So
I think it's a good point. Of course, there's many in there. But one of the ones that kind of brings it back is that's a breakdown when people are physically scared.
Uh-huh.
That is not
Right.
what I think nearly all of us want to have to face.
Right.
We don't want to live our lives in fear of some kind of physical violence or harm to our body.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what anybody wants.
But let me give you an example, though, of two very different ways to deal with something that's a bad situation. So I think we all watched on TV when people in downtown Indianapolis were breaking into, like, Crown Liquors and holding the...
It was right here.
Yes, and I'm in that building. So we watched it on the television. Yes, all in downtown. And you watched people holding the doors. Well, everybody just went in and stole and vandalized. That was awful to watch.
Yes.
It was terrible. Now, then compare that to people who disagree and they peacefully protest.
Right.
All for that. Oh my gosh, that is our right. That's our right to do that. And there's a big difference between the two. And you can't confuse those two. Violence in the face of adversity or when other people are doing it, so I'm going to do it too, versus peaceful protest. Those are two great examples of lawlessness and lawfulness.
Right. I mean, that's democracy in action, right?
Right.
Yes.
Peaceful protest. That's
Right.
why that's a cornerstone of our system. So let's talk about how you guys, as a committee, how you're going to reach other people and educate them, talk to them about the rule of law.
Well, we already are.
Yeah.
So, and I'll start with this because the initiative has been, first of all, so happy that the bar has done this. Is like formed the initiative now, made it a permanent committee to show that it is going to be long term. They're not abandoning this. This is now and in the future to emphasize the rule of law, both within our profession and outside of our profession. But I think it started really with Law Day because people resonated, lawyers, to this calling out of the rule of law, and they came, and it was a beautiful sight to see hundreds of lawyers and judges walking up to the federal courthouse steps to reaffirm our oath and to be re-energized in what our promise is, right, to our profession and to the people. So it started with that, and the number of attorneys who said, I want to be a part of this and put me on the volunteer list is very large. So now when we, as a committee, said, okay, what's the next way? How now do we go about starting? Because we jumped into it. Now starting about our plan. And Constitution Day just happens to be next. So I'm going to say the momentum started there. And I'll say this. We're talking about two different groups of people who are attorneys and judges, people in our profession, and then the public.
Right.
So we're doing this on several fronts. I mean, it's easier as lawyers to figure out how we reach the lawyers. Well, CLE is one way to do it, right? And through all of our connections. But the public seemed a little bit more challenging. So right now, actually, we've got an essay contest to open to high school students in the Indianapolis area, surrounding counties to Indy, to Marion County. And it's the deadline for submissions is September 1st. It's a rule of law prompt, and the three top submissions will receive a small cash prize, a commemorative plaque, but importantly, they'll be recognized in the Indiana Supreme Court courtroom on Constitution Day on September 17th, which we're very excited about. You want to read the prompt?
Sure, if we're ready. So, of course, this is for the students that are going to submit. The rule of law is the principle that society must be governed by rules that apply to each person equally and impartially. It is said to be critical to maintaining trust in our legal system. Discuss the level of trust you and those close to you have in our legal system. Explain why trust in our legal system is so important. Based on your personal experiences, propose specific ways to improve trust in our legal system.
I love that.
Yeah. So we're involving our young adults, right?
Good.
So that's number one. Also, with respect to the public, on Constitution Day on September 17th, we're going to have a moderated community town hall at the Hawthorne Community Center, where there'll be they serve about 200 families, and the discussion will be about the Constitution, like maybe the top 5 most important Constitution issues and what it means to them, to those in the audience. It'll be about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yep.
So that's good. We're involving the adults, the families in the community on that. Also, we've got a program that will be in the Indiana Supreme Court courtroom on Constitution Day. And it's going to talk about the American rule of law and why our system is better than other systems. So while it's not perfect, as we know, we should be very grateful for what we have. And then we're going to be talking about the Indiana Constitution as well, which people forget. Like, we have one based about the United States Constitution, but we've got the Indiana Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to have a small reception after that. Not a big deal. But we're also putting attorneys in classrooms, which is very exciting. We got excited.
For sure.
We got our first invitation to have an attorney or attorneys go speak to 110 students in the 5th through 8th grade on the Friday of Constitution Week about the Constitution.
That's great.
And by the way, so we've got a number of our leaders through IndyBar and leaders in the community who have pushed these things out. So I have no doubt that we are going to be getting more schools who will be asking for attorneys to go in and speak with the students, whatever the age. And we say, we don't care. We'll give you resources. If they're third graders, if they're fifth graders, if they're high schoolers, we'll provide you with resources. If it's a half an hour or an hour, we'll work with you so that you can easily go in and make an impact on these students.
It's so funny that we have all these lawyers that support the rule of law, of course, but like we live within it, it'd be like, a mathematician and you take away, laws of mathematics, like we understand how important it is. So, educating the public and how it impacts their daily lives. I mean, could you imagine what would be the impact on a Hoosier family without the rule of law?
Like, everything would fall apart.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Everything.
Yeah.
There would be no
Couldn't even
guarantee.
get your kids to school. You wouldn't even have school.
Wouldn't know.
Couldn't go to the police.
Whether
There's no, people can take your stuff.
Yeah.
Break into your home.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at some of the other countries where people are imprisoned. They've been charged, but they'll sit there for years. I mean, no right to jury trial. I mean, these things that we have are not to be taken for granted. Being able to show up and know that you've got a jury of your peers is pretty darn important.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about Law Day. Okay. That's different than Constitutional Day, right? Tell me a little more about that. Law Day.
I don't recall ever there being a law day that was celebrated with a affirmation of the oath of attorneys.
Yeah.
And so it's a day nationally that you celebrate the law, and however it's being celebrated is not any one way, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those who were there, the electricity on those court steps, it was not like nothing I've seen. Attorneys who came and stood proudly and restating what it is they agreed to do.
Yeah.
So that was our way. We had speeches from the Supreme Court Justice, other special invited guests. Sarah Evans Barker is the one who re-administered the oath. We had judges, lawyers from Indy and beyond. So that is, however you celebrate Law Day, right? That is the way we chose to do it.
Yeah.
And Constitution Day is a day to appreciate, understand, talk about, remember, remind others what the Constitution is, why you have rights and privileges, what's protected and what's not. So, however people choose to celebrate on that day, I think it varies, but we're doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be the biggest challenge for you guys, getting out into the public, educating them, helping them understand why it's important. For us as lawyers, we get it. We live it every day.
Right.
Yeah, but that's going to be a challenge. And I respect the fact that you guys are doing that. I think it's amazing. I think it's fantastic work. And it's important work because there's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there, and it's causing this confused perception that we had talked about earlier. And, just the ability to listen and understand, and who better to explain it to them than people like us who live the system every day, right? So what kind of a person volunteers for this type of work? Like, what drives them?
Passion for everything that is fundamental to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I don't think anybody, if asked the question, will you help support these things that give you your right to do this, that give you your freedoms, your liberties, your expectation that, that this is going to, if this, then that, and you may not like it, but you have an avenue, right? So, for attorneys, I think we all know we have an obligation to help foster a respect for the law, right, in the system. So I feel like, we know that we should be doing things like this. I think for anybody, to digress for a moment, the World Justice Project it was formed by a president of the ABA almost 2 decades ago, and it's a 501c3, but it is worldwide, and they rank countries on competence in the rule of law. And where do you think the United States falls as of 2024?
2024? Oh, geez.
I would not think very high.
Yeah. Developed countries.
We're number 26.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should be number 1.
Why?
We're number 26. So there's some room for growth. So anybody who says we can do better, yeah, we can do better. We're better than a lot. I think there are 146 on the list, and we're like 26. So we're better than most.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. We're better than most, but probably not as high as we all believe we should be. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys had any pushback, any resistance to this?
No.
Lots of support.
Yes.
Lots of love. Lots of, yes, we'll do it. Sign us up. And when people are, and Travis has been amazing sending out emails, and people will reply and go, yes, sign me up for this or that. And I'm like, it's just great to see even people who are busy, people who think they don't have time are squeezing in the time. And people who are removed from the legal profession, like retired. Just one today sent emails out to several schools with the essay information and information about lawyers in schools and copied me. So, no pushback.
No, it's been, now, of course, there may be some people that feel differently about it, but we've not heard on them.
Non-lawyer pushback, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you part of the reason why. So from the outset, and this is the question I asked, and I think you want clarification on this as well. When we were asked, I said, it can't be political, or I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Because this is not a political issue.
No.
And so even in the very first article, it said this is an apolitical effort.
Yeah.
It is not partisan. It is fundamental.
Right.
It's for everybody.
That is not the role of this committee, nor, of course, is it the role of the rule of law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is apolitical.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. My family immigrated here from Cuba after Fidel Castro took over, and this government took everything from my family, and that attracted me to be a lawyer. Insurance companies can be like bullies, and they have a lot of resources behind them. Give us a call here at Hearst Limontes. We are protective of our clients because our clients matter and you matter. Indiana's trusted personal injury law firm is proud to partner with the Indiana Fever for 2025, bringing the same passion, persistence, and power to the courtroom that the Indiana Fever bring to the court. At Hearst Limontes, we fight for the injured and stand up to those who can't stand alone. Just like the Fever fight every night for victory and community pride. This partnership is more than just about basketball. It's about resilience, leadership, and giving back to Indiana, on and off the court. So this season, when you cheer the Fever, remember, there's a team in the courtroom with the same winning spirit. When you guys, if you guys are feeling kind of discouraged, about the state of things right now, what are some of the things that renew your hope?
I'll jump in and say,
Yeah.
My children, because of the way that they come to look at what they've been taught and what they see as an innate sense of fairness, which is really a core principle of the rule of law. Before they have been, and maybe it's before they've lived, enough life to start getting potentially jaded, like is a risk for all of us. That gives me a lot of hope for the way that they look at things and the questions that they ask, because they're not necessarily driven by an agenda.
Yep. Yeah.
I would say the willingness of people to listen. Yeah. Has the conversation. I had one before this with a judge, and it was such a fantastic, engaging conversation about the rule of law, and about teaching children about the Constitution, and people who, like, I'll say, okay, well, you're not happy with this, but let's talk about what you can do. Like, what if you don't like this? Go get people together that have your same viewpoint. Say, what is it that we can do to come with a solution? Where do we go in order to fix the problem? Don't just complain about the problem, or figure out what is the root cause of the problem, right? So to be able to talk to people and have a conversation, and if there's not this ability to do that, then I think that you can't change minds, or then they can't go back and tell people, oh gosh, this is not how we handle this problem. We can do it this way. Or they go home and they say to their children who had a problem with school, okay, this is how you handle the problem. And it relates to the small things and the big things. So like having that conversation is the start of it. And I think people are willing to start having it because they're asking the question, why am I hearing about this all the time?
Right. And I'll add in something I remembered that I was going to say to an earlier question. And then I think I got very intrigued by Chris's comment about where we rank on the, where we were 26th on the list, if that was confidence in the rule of law. Or
the rankings on the rule of law by the World Justice Project.
Yes. But that was a question that you had asked about who is drawn to this.
Yeah.
And then I'm combining that with the question you just asked about what gives you hope.
Right.
Lawyers.
Yeah.
Lawyers in this legal community are who are drawn to this.
Yeah.
Because, of course, there's a certain personality that was drawn to go to law school in the first place.
Right.
It was a belief in a system of laws and rules. And they're also, among us, I would say a higher than average amount of passion.
Oh, yeah.
And, that passion can do a lot of things in the world. And so that gives me a lot of hope as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I was going to follow up with that. It sounds like what gives you, a lot of hope and makes you energetic about it is the response that you're getting. You have so much support from the legal community. And I agree with you. The inherent in the concept of justice is this idea of fairness. It is the original building block of it, So, and that's something that we teach all of our kids every day, like even older ones that are, law school graduates, So it's important and certainly, a cornerstone of the rule of law. So if you could sit down with every, Hoosier, okay, for 5 minutes and talk to them about the rule of law, okay, what would you tell them?
I would tell them several of the things that we've already covered, really, which is to remind them that what the rule of law really means, that we will deal with things fairly, equally, without regard to status, power, wealth, and that it will be consistent and it will be according to their expectations. It won't be a surprise. And then remind them that a lot of the things that we can take for granted are based on what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, hopefully, not just tell them, but talk with them to reach the point of an agreement that, yeah, this is what we all want.
And I would say, I agree with you 100%. And I would say, just if you had 5 minutes, everybody hears the noise. And I would say what you're seeing and what you're hearing, you should feel confident in questioning it. Ask the question of someone. You say, I would like to talk about what's going on. And that's what we hope to see at the Hawthorne Community Center. Like, not what's going on. It's not going to be about specific cases or anything, but to talk about constitutional rights, right? But just because you see all this noise, break it down to the Constitution. What are your rights? And how can you deal with it, and talk to someone and ask the question.
And I'm very, very interested, I'm sure we both are, to see what the students in the essay contest have to share.
Oh, absolutely.
because that's a version of what you're talking about, is getting to have this insight into, ninth to 12th graders is who are going to be participating in this. And they're going to be talking about things like, what is your assessment of how much trust we have? Why is that important? And what can we do to make it better? And watch some of them come up with some things that we're not able to.
And by the way, I take trust in our legal system personally. There's a distrust in our legal system. The question should be, what can we do better?
Yes.
And whether it comes from a ninth grader or someone who just had an awful day in court, to say, well, what can we, as long as it was fair, all right, what can we do better so that we can reestablish that trust in our legal system?
Yeah. Great ideas stand on their own. It doesn't matter where they came from.
Right.
So,
right. And, you guys all have kids. I mean, from the mouths of babes, it's usually pretty damn true, even from a ninth grader, So what would you say to someone who thinks it's just too late, that the damage has already been done and we can't fix our broken system?
It's not broken. And we can make it better.
Yeah.
And we can educate. I mean, our purpose is to educate, inform, to make it so that the rule of law is ever present, right? And then it's relatable, and then it's accessible. So people feel like it is personal to them, because it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say to them, I wish I was a better student of history to be able to recite a more accurate laundry list of the point I'm going to make. But we've been around for a while.
Yeah.
And we have been through tough times as a country before. And the fundamentals of our system of government have survived.
Yes.
And it's not too late.
Yeah.
At all. It was far from it, actually.
Never too late.
Yeah. Yeah. What does success look like for this committee?
Well, I would say in one way, we've already experienced a ton of it. And of course, we've touched on that. The engagement, the response, not just an email response or a comment, but people taking the time out of their day that we know it takes for lawyers that often, I mean, let's be honest, most of our calendars are so full.
Oh my gosh.
So to have the hundreds of lawyers that took the time out of their day to get to the federal courthouse because this was so important to them is success.
Yeah.
The fact that we're able to continue this conversation and keep coming up with new ideas for Constitution Day to have another version of the experience that we had, that is success. And I think that ultimate success will be any measure that shows us that a renewed understanding of the rule of law and a heightened ability to be able to separate those foundational concepts, the importance of the rule of law, from some of the noise that we've referenced, will be success every day that happens.
Absolutely. And I'll say this also. I think success is talking to 110 fifth through eighth graders about the Constitution. Even if we get 20 submissions for the essay contest, 20 high school students contemplate that prompt. What is it? Why is trust in the legal system so important, right? Reaching a handful of the public who then says, oh, I get what you're talking about when I hear that. It makes sense to me. And then they go back to their community and something goes wrong and they can say, but wait a minute, I know we can talk through it. I know where we can go. Seriously, whether it's they go to the IndyBar and say we need to talk to someone. So, we are the Rule of Law Committee is now on the IndyBar website. There will be resources there. It'll show the events. There's also a place on the IBF page to donate to Rule of Law initiatives. So that includes things like we have cash prizes for the winners of the essay contest. Things like if in order to reach the public, we have to do certain things, whether it is create things that they can walk away, tangibles. This is a mini constitution or whatever it is. Create pieces that we can leave with public so that then they can share it. That's success. So I think we've got a lot in store. We've got long and short term plans. You're going to be seeing a lot of it, and especially with all the social media stuff that Travis and Thomas are doing. But
And credit to the IBA staff, of course, who will do the heavy lifting on that.
we cannot leave them. Oh my gosh, let's talk about how great they are.
Can we?
Yes. And I will tell you, they have this, Julie and Bruce, everybody at the IndyBar, they have said yes to everything, even if it is like we had 3 weeks to plan the law day event, and we're on a short time frame for the Constitution Day event because it just happened to come up, and we were like, oh, there's Constitution Day, this is perfect, and they have gotten it done in spades.
Which, of course, you've seen countless times of what they do, but
Right.
That's a great group of non-lawyers that supports the rule of law,
Oh yeah.
and they understand how important it is.
And don't forget, we've got a paralegal community. We haven't even talked about getting into the paralegal community.
Oh, yeah.
And so in any event, we've got a lot of big plans.
So any lawyers that are listening, if they want to learn more about maybe how they can help, how they can volunteer, or even just donate a few bucks or whatever, how can they find out more?
well, I would direct them first to the page on the Bar Association website, which is dedicated now to the Rule of Law Committee. And I believe that it's been up long enough that if they Google search it, it should come up. And that will be listing anything that is coming up as far as our activities. There's a site right now for Constitution Day, and we hope for it to eventually be a repository of materials.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That we actually, I'm not sure if we got onto that at some point today or not, but that's another one of the things that we want to do is accumulate materials that can be used in any of the things we've talked about, these town hall meetings, going into the classrooms.
Great idea.
Yes. And then, of course, they always can reach out individually. I don't think she'll be upset at me for saying it, to Julie Armstrong, that's on there, or to me or Chris. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
if I can put it in here, is my email address is tjensen, JENSEN, at johnsonjensen.com, JOHNSONJENSE.
And I'm CH at Rubin, RUBIN-Levin, And as co-chairs, if he gets something, you'll share with me. If I get something, I'll share with him.
Which we all
And if
do.
Julie gets something, she shares it with us. So it's a
Yeah.
So we only do that about 82 times per day.
Right. We'll make sure we put those in the show notes, that contact information and a link to the page too.
Right.
Yeah. So you guys, thank you so much for being here.
Alex, thank you for
Appreciate it.
He really appreciates
It's always a
support.
pleasure to see you guys, so every time. So if you want to leave our audience with one quick word about the rule of law in your committee and all the things you guys are doing, we'll see you there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see you there.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Circle City Conversations. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future conversations.